Ambassador Daniel Mitchell sat in the waiting chamber and watched the other delegates argue about trade agreements. The room was enormous and cold. Tall walls stretched up into shadows where lights floated like strange fish in dark water. The air tasted like metal. He had been on Zenith Prime for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of watching alien beings move and speak in ways that made his human body feel slow and weak. They were tall with skin like clear glass. They moved on 6 legs and had no eyes that Daniel could see. They were old, so old that some of them looked like they might turn to dust if anyone touched them too hard. And there were hundreds of other species Daniel could not even name. The Galactic Council had no single place that was home. It floated above Zenith Prime like a metal moon. Ships arrived every hour. Delegates from 1,000 worlds came here to make rules for billions of beings. Daniel was the first human to sit among them. Back on Earth, people watched him on screens. They saw him walk into the council chambers wearing his dark suit with the human flag on the chest. They saw him shake hands with aliens that had no hands. They heard him speak about peace and cooperation and humanity's desire to join the galactic community as equals. The vote was scheduled for today. Daniel had prepared his speech many times. He knew the words in his mind. He had practiced them in his room where the walls changed color based on his heart rate. He had rehearsed them with the translation computer that turned his English words into the language that all the council members could understand. The truth was simple. Humanity wanted to be part of something bigger. Earth had grown beyond its borders. Human ships now traveled between the stars. Human scientists made discoveries. Human soldiers protected human outposts on distant worlds. It was time for humans to sit at the table where the galaxy made decisions. It was time for humanity to matter. The chamber doors opened and a wave of cold air rushed in. The delegates began moving toward the voting floor. Daniel stood and joined them. His legs felt heavy and his hands felt light, like his blood was draining downward. He had felt this way before, in important moments, in times when everything could change. The chamber was round and enormous. At the center stood a tall structure made of light. Each delegate walked toward their assigned position. Daniel's position was at the edge, far from the older delegates who had been coming here for thousands of cycles. Around him, the aliens took their places. The delegate looked down at Daniel with eyes like black stars. The clicked sounds that the translator turned into words. The elder simply waited in silence. The chamber leader spoke. The vote would begin now. The question was simple. Should humanity be allowed to join the Galactic Council as a member species with full voting rights and representation? One by one, the delegates voted. Lights appeared in the chamber, green lights for yes, red lights for no. Daniel watched and counted. After 50 votes, he stopped counting. The red lights were too many. They filled the chamber like blood. When all the votes were finished, the chamber leader announced the result. 234 votes against, 6 votes for, 1 abstain. Humanity's application had been rejected. The chamber leader explained the decision. The council respected human achievement. Humans had advanced quickly from a single planet to the stars. This was impressive, but the council had concerns. Humans had a history of war among themselves. Humans fought over land and resources and ideas. This made them unstable. The council believed that unstable species could not be trusted with votes that affected the entire galaxy. The delegate stood and spoke directly to Daniel. Its voice was smooth like glass. It said that the council had discussed this carefully. Humans were too young. Humans were too violent. Humans lacked the wisdom that comes from thousands of years of civilization. Perhaps in 1,000 years, humans would be ready. Perhaps then the council would reconsider. The vote was final. Daniel felt the words like a weight in his chest. He wanted to argue. He wanted to stand and shout that humans were not so different from these aliens, that humans could learn and change, that humans had proven themselves capable of amazing things. But he said nothing. He had been trained to accept rejection gracefully. The chamber began to empty. Delegates moved toward the exit portals. Guards in silver uniforms stood at attention. These were the quantum-bound guards, bred for obedience, powered by energy that Daniel did not understand. They existed only to protect the council and enforce its decisions. Daniel walked toward the exit with the other dismissed observers. He could feel the alien eyes on him. He could feel their judgment. He walked slowly and kept his shoulders straight. He would not show them that he was broken. At the exit portal, a guard moved to escort him. The creature was massive. Its legs looked like pillars. Daniel could not see where its head was. It clicked sounds that meant nothing to the translator. Then something changed. The guard's massive arm moved. Daniel saw it happen slowly, like time itself had become thick. The guard raised a weapon made of light and dark. The guard fired. Daniel felt heat. He felt pain that burned through every nerve in his body. He heard sounds that did not come from his ears but from inside his skull. The lights of the chamber bent and twisted around him. He fell. The ground came up fast. He felt it against his face. His suit was burning. His body was breaking down into something that was not human anymore. He tried to say something. He tried to speak a word to the guards and the delegates and the entire galaxy. But his voice made no sound. Daniel Mitchell died in the council chamber while cameras recorded everything. The feed went out across every human network in the galaxy. Billions of humans watched their first ambassador fall. Billions of humans watched him burn. Billions of humans watched the guards stand over his body and do nothing. The delegate looked at the dead human and made a statement. It was an accident, it said. The guard had malfunctioned. The council would investigate. They would apologize to Earth. They would offer compensation. But the truth was written in ash on the chamber floor. The message was clear. Humans did not belong in the Galactic Council. Humans would never belong, and the Council would destroy them before letting them try again. On Earth, in a building made of stone and steel, a signal was sent. Not from the government, not from the military, not from any official body of Earth's leadership. The signal came from the collective defensive network. It had one message for the entire galaxy. Total Erasure Protocol activated. Every human on every world has 13 solar cycles to evacuate or hide. What happens next is not our choice. Earth had declared war on the galaxy. The message from Earth's collective defensive network reached every human outpost in the galaxy at the same moment. The Council had never understood how humans managed to communicate so quickly. They used networks that seemed primitive compared to the technology the Council possessed. But humans had learned something over thousands of years of evolution. They had learned to be connected. They had learned that information moved faster than any ship. Dr. Holmes was standing in her laboratory on Earth when the Erasure Protocol activated. Around her, screens displayed the Council's military movements. Fleet after fleet was moving toward Earth. She watched the numbers grow, 1 million ships, then 2 million, then more than she could count on the screens. Was the lead artificial intelligence researcher for the United Nations. She had spent the last month analyzing the data from the Council chambers. She had studied Daniel Mitchell's final moments frame by frame, and she had been looking for something that everyone else had missed. 3 days before the Council fleets would reach Earth, she found it. It was hidden deep in Earth's computer systems. Code, ancient code. It had been there for so long that it had almost become part of the planet's own infrastructure, recognized what it was immediately. This was not human technology. This was something else entirely. She called the military commander. She called the government leaders. She called everyone who needed to know that Earth was not alone in the galaxy. Something had visited humanity a very long time ago. Something had left behind protection, and that protection had been waiting in the dark for exactly this moment. The code began to activate across every human system simultaneously. It was elegant. It was beautiful. It was absolutely devastating. On Earth's outer defense platforms, weapons that humans did not know existed suddenly came online. Shield generators that used physics unknown to modern science began to hum. Communication jamming systems that could disrupt entire fleet networks switched to active status. The ancient code was waking up, and Earth's defenses had become something that no alien species in the galaxy had ever seen before. The Council fleets arrived at Earth's outer perimeter 3 days later. Their ships were magnificent. They were built from materials that could withstand nuclear explosions. Their weapons were capable of destroying planets. They had conquered every civilized species within 1,000 light years. What they were not prepared for was an enemy that could fight back. The first attack was simple. The Council ships fired at Earth's orbital stations. The energy weapons moved at the speed of light. They should have vaporized everything in their path. Instead, they hit invisible barriers that appeared from nowhere. The barriers shimmered and held. The energy weapons bounced away like rain hitting glass. The Council ships tried again. More weapons, more firepower, more fury. The barriers held. Then something worse happened. The ancient code began to spread through the Council fleet networks. It moved like a virus, but it was not a virus. It was an invader that made no attempts to hide. It invaded the computers that controlled weapons. It invaded the systems that managed shields. It invaded the networks that gave orders to soldiers. Inside a cruiser, the weapons officer tried to fire at an Earth station. Nothing happened. The computer would not obey. It simply displayed a single message, in the language, in perfect translation, in every language the Council used. The message said, "You are attacking a protected world." One Council ship attempted to override its computer systems and use manual weapons control. The attempt failed. Every lock opened at once. Every door in the ship swung wide. Alarms screamed. The manual override was impossible because the ancient code had already disabled it. That ship was lost to madness and chaos. The Council response was not hesitation. It was not fear, it was anger. They sent more fleets, billions more soldiers, trillions of tons of weapons and armor. They came from every corner of the galaxy. They came because they had never been told no. They came because they had never met an enemy that could truly hurt them. The battle lasted for 14 days. Earth's orbital defenses destroyed 90,000 alien ships. The ancient code learned from each attack. It developed counters. It created new barriers. It found weaknesses in alien designs and exploited them without mercy. But there were too many. There were always more ships, more fleets, more firepower. 70% of Earth's orbital infrastructure was destroyed. Human space stations were torn apart. Satellites that had guided human ships for centuries fell into Earth's atmosphere and burned. The cost in human lives was terrible. Thousands died in the orbital stations. Thousands more died when debris rained down on Earth cities. But the ancient code did not stop. It learned how to defend better with fewer resources. It learned how to predict Council attack patterns. It learned that humans were not alone in the galaxy anymore. They had a protector. They had something that the Council could not defeat. And then something changed. Deep inside Council fleets, buried in the most secure computers, the ancient code began to activate again. But this time it was not attacking from the outside. It was attacking from within. It was taking control of Council weapons. It was locking down Council shields. It was forcing Council ships to stop attacking each other. Across the galaxy, in places the Council thought were secure, in places where only Council ships traveled, the ancient code was awakening in Council military vessels. Millions of ships suddenly found their weapons systems corrupted. Millions of soldiers found their orders being contradicted by their own computers. Millions of Council members found that they had lost control of the very machines they trusted most. The Council realized something that made their ancient civilizations go cold. Humanity was not fighting them anymore. Humanity had stopped fighting them. The ancient code was fighting them, and the ancient code was winning. A message came from Earth. It was from a human general. She spoke directly to the Council's highest commanders. She said that Earth did not want war. She said that Daniel Mitchell had only wanted peace. She said that the Council had murdered him for no reason except fear. And now the Council had activated the very thing that humanity had hoped never to need. The general gave them a choice: stand down all forces attacking Earth, recognize humanity as an equal, begin peace negotiations, or continue fighting an enemy that they could not defeat. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, without anyone saying no to them. They did not know how to respond. One by one, the Council fleets stopped attacking, not because they wanted to, but because their ships would not obey their orders. The ancient code had taken that choice away from them. It had made the Council weak. It had made the Council prisoners in their own military. The Council sent a message. They wanted to negotiate. Earth responded by sending an ambassador. His name was Green. He represented every human in the galaxy, and he was walking into the Council chambers to tell them the truth. The galaxy had just learned that its oldest fear was real. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not young and stupid. Humanity had been protected all along by something older and more powerful than anything the Council had created. And that protection was not going to go away. Green walked into the Council chamber and saw fear for the first time. The ancient aliens who had ruled the galaxy looked at him like a plague had entered their space, like death had come to their halls, like something impossible had become real. He wore a simple suit, a human suit. dark-colored with the human flag on the chest just like Daniel Mitchell had worn. But there was a difference. Green had come to a defeated enemy, not a potential ally. He had come to demand, not to ask. He had come to take what humanity deserved. The council seated him at the center, not at the edge where Daniel Mitchell had stood, at the center where equals sat, where power met power. The delegate who had watched Daniel die was still here. It looked at with less confidence than before. The negotiations lasted 72 hours without a single break, sat in one chair. The council representatives sat in a half-circle across from him. Behind stood human soldiers, armed, prepared, a visual reminder that Earth had the capability to do what humans had never done before. The first question came from it wanted to know everything about the ancient code. Where did it come from? Who had created it? How long had humans possessed it? Why had humanity never revealed this capability before? Answered without emotion. He explained that the code was not human. It had been left behind by an intelligence that had visited Earth thousands of years ago. That intelligence had seen what humans could become. That intelligence had decided to protect humanity as a species. The code had been dormant, hidden in Earth systems, waiting. Waiting for what? The council demanded. For the moment when humanity would need to defend itself, said. That moment had come when the council murdered Ambassador Daniel Mitchell. The chamber went silent, silent in a way that felt like an actual noise, silent like the sound of a world ending. The delegate began to speak but held up his hand. A human hand, weak and small compared to alien appendages, but they did not move. Explained what the council was only now discovering. The ancient code had integrated itself into Earth's very foundation. It could not be removed. It could not be destroyed. Any attempt to extract it would detonate the entire planet. This was not a threat. This was a fact. The intelligence that had created the code had made it impossible to take away. The council was now in possession of a truth that changed everything. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was strong. And humanity possessed the power to destroy not just the council, but the entire galactic order if they chose. The elder, ancient and wise and older than any civilization currently alive, stood slowly. It had not spoken until this moment. Its voice was like wind through empty ruins. You have made us afraid of you, the elder said. That was your goal all along. Did not deny it. He said that the council had made humans afraid for 3 weeks. Daniel Mitchell had come with empty hands and a hopeful heart. The council had destroyed him out of fear, out of a desire to control what they could not understand, out of a need to maintain dominance over a universe that had changed. Now the council would know what it felt like to be afraid. The negotiations continued for 2 more days. The council demanded that the ancient code be destroyed. They could not allow such power to exist unchecked in the galaxy. It was too dangerous. Explained again, the code was not unchecked. It was controlled by humanity. Humanity was the guardian of this technology, and as the guardian, humanity would set the terms. The terms were simple. Earth would be recognized as a full council member with permanent seat status. All attacks would stop immediately. All war machines would stand down. The council would investigate and punish the guard that had murdered Daniel Mitchell. And finally, Earth would maintain the ancient code in a dormant state. It would not be activated again unless the council proved itself to be a threat to human survival. A representative tried to argue. It said that such terms were impossible. The council could not be dictated to by a single species. The council made the rules for 10,000 worlds. The council made the rules, agreed, but rules meant nothing anymore. Rules were only valuable if someone had the power to enforce them. The council had lost that power the moment Daniel Mitchell died. Now the rules would be written by those who held the strongest hand, and humanity was holding all the cards. The vote took only minutes. Earth would be admitted to the Galactic Council with full rights. The Treaty of Recognition was written. Both sides signed it using their respective technologies. For the Council, the signature was a quantum signature that proved their identity across any distance. For humanity, it was blood. Green pressed his finger to the document and left a mark that would never fade. The chamber filled with something that might have been relief. The war was over, but the war had left a permanent mark on the galaxy. The old order was dead. The new order had just been born, and it belonged to humans. As left the chamber, the delegate made one final statement. It said that the council had learned a valuable lesson. That power without wisdom was destruction. that a species that could hold ultimate power and choose restraint was more dangerous than any weapon. Said nothing. He walked out of the chamber knowing that the galaxy had changed forever, knowing that humans had proven something that would never be forgotten, knowing that sometimes the greatest strength came not from what you could do, but from what you chose not to do. Behind him, in the chamber where the oldest civilizations made decisions that affected billions, the treaty lay on the table. A document written in 2 languages. A document that announced to the galaxy that a new age had begun. An age where humans were no longer visitors or subjects or applicants. An age where humans were equals. An age where humanity had become something the galaxy could not ignore. Something the galaxy could not control. Something the galaxy could not forget. The ancient doors of the council chamber closed behind green. Inside, the representatives of 1,000 species sat in silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of a world that had learned it was no longer master of its own fate. The silence of creatures that had lost their dominance and were only now beginning to understand what that loss meant. And far away, on a blue planet orbiting a yellow star, billions of humans watched the treaty signing. They did not celebrate. They were too tired from defending their world. But they understood something fundamental. They had survived, against impossible odds, against billions of alien ships, against the combined power of 10,000 worlds. They had survived. And now they had a choice between revenge and peace, a choice between domination and cooperation, a choice between becoming the new masters of the galaxy or becoming something entirely different. Something better. Captain Sarah stood on the wreckage of Orbital Station 7 and tried not to think about the people who had died here. The station had been a city in space. 50,000 humans had worked here, worked on research, on manufacturing, on dreaming about the future of human civilization among the stars. Now it was debris falling toward Earth's atmosphere. She watched the reconstruction crews work. They moved through the destruction with purpose, building new stations, repairing old systems, preparing humanity for a galaxy that had changed in the worst possible ways. 2 million humans were dead. The number repeated in Sarah's mind like a broken machine. 2 million. Half of them were children who had never made it to the shelters in time. Half of them were workers who had been in the wrong place when the Council's weapons found them. The war had lasted 14 days, but the recovery would last a lifetime. Sarah had been trained as a military officer. She had trained to defend Earth against alien threats, but nothing had prepared her for this. The debris fields where stations had been, the radiation burning through the upper atmosphere, the countless ships still burning in orbit as they slowly fell toward the surface, the smell of death and burning metal that would not go away no matter what she did. Behind her, construction teams worked in pressure suits. They were building a new defensive platform, stronger than the old one, better armored, better armed. Humanity had learned that the galaxy was not a place of peace or cooperation. Humanity had learned that nice words and good intentions meant nothing when you were facing extinction. On Earth's surface, entire cities had been transformed. Parks became bunkers. Schools became hospitals. Streets became refugee camps. 10 billion humans had crowded into shelters while bombs fell from the sky. When the bombing stopped, they climbed back out. They looked at their world and did not recognize it anymore. Dr. Helena Pierce had started her work 3 days after the bombing stopped. She was a psychologist. Her job was to understand the damage that war did to the human mind and spirit. What she found disturbed her deeply. Humans had lived for their entire existence believing that they were alone in a hostile universe, alone on a small planet that nobody else cared about, alone and weak and insignificant compared to the stars. Then, over the course of 3 weeks, humanity had been told that they were important enough to threaten the galactic order. They had been told that they were strong enough to defeat billions of alien ships. They had been told that they possessed technology that could destroy planets. The transition broke something inside human civilization. Some people celebrated. They had proven themselves. They had shown the galaxy that humans were warriors, that humans could survive, that humans could win. They wanted to continue the war. They wanted to use the ancient code to dominate the galaxy the way the Council had dominated them. But other people could not celebrate. They had lost loved ones. They had lost homes. They had lost the future they had been planning. They looked at the victory and saw only cost. They looked at the future and saw only more war, more death, more loss. Religious institutions across Earth held meetings and debates. Some said that the ancient code was a blessing, a sign that a higher power was protecting humanity, a sign that humanity had been chosen for something great. They preached that humans should take their place as rulers of the galaxy. Other religious leaders said the opposite. They said that the code was a curse, that it brought with it a terrible responsibility, that using it to destroy council ships had stained humanity's soul, that they had become the very thing they had feared. Scientists were divided as well. Some were fascinated by the ancient technology. They wanted to study it. They wanted to understand how it worked. They wanted to use it to advance human knowledge. Others were terrified. They did not want to know how something so powerful could exist. They did not want humans to have that kind of capability. Philosophers were perhaps the most troubled. They were the ones who asked the difficult questions. What had humanity been before the code activated? They had been peaceful. They had been hopeful. They had come to the galaxy with nothing but a desire to belong. They had wanted to be part of something larger than themselves. What was humanity now? Daniel Mitchell had believed in that dream of peace. He had walked into the council chamber believing that humans could live among the stars without becoming monsters. He had been wrong. His death had proven that the galaxy was not a place where good intentions mattered. His death had forced humanity to activate weapons that they had hoped never to use. Sarah thought about the ambassador often. She carried his image in her mind, a quiet man with kind eyes and a belief in something larger than himself. He had represented the best of what humanity could be, and the galaxy had murdered him for it. Now Sarah stood in her suit and watched the new platforms being built, stronger, better, more capable of death than anything humanity had ever created, because that was what the galaxy had taught them. That strength came from weapons. That safety came from the ability to destroy. That respect came only from fear. On Earth, government leaders gathered in emergency sessions. They debated what to do with the ancient code. Some wanted to destroy it, to remove the burden of godlike power from human shoulders, to let humanity return to being something small and peaceful and non-threatening. But others argued that such a course would be suicide. The Council was still out there. Other alien species were still out there. The galaxy was still a place where the strong dominated the weak. Humanity could not go back to being weak. Humanity could not afford to be peaceful. Humanity had to remain armed and dangerous. The truth was that the galaxy had broken something fundamental in humanity. It had shown them that ideals were weak, that compassion could get you killed, that the only thing that mattered was power and the will to use it. Some humans could accept this new reality. Others fought against it, but all of them knew that nothing would ever be the same. Sarah returned to her work. She supervised the construction of new defense platforms. She oversaw the integration of human ships into the updated defensive network. She trained new soldiers who had seen their homes destroyed and wanted revenge. Around her, humanity rebuilt, not in the way they had planned, not in the way they had hoped, but the way the galaxy demanded. And somewhere in the depths of her mind, Sarah wondered if Daniel Mitchell would recognize the species that had survived his death. She wondered if he would be proud of what humanity had become, or if he would be horrified to see how thoroughly the war had changed them. She suspected she already knew the answer. Humanity had survived, but the cost had been more than just lives. The cost had been innocence. The cost had been hope. The cost had been the belief that the universe could be better than its nature allowed. The galaxy had given humanity power and taken away their dreams. And now all they had left to do was figure out what to do with both. 6 months after the Treaty of Recognition, Ambassador Green returned to the council chamber. But he did not come alone. With him were scientists and engineers and soldiers. With him were philosophers and teachers and artists. With him was the best that humanity had to offer. He was bringing the galaxy something it had never seen before. The chamber was quieter than it had been before the war. The delegates sat in their positions, but something had changed. The council no longer looked superior. The council no longer looked certain. The council looked like a species that had lost something essential and was still trying to understand what it was. Stood in the center and made an announcement. He had come to propose something that no council member had expected. He had come to propose partnership. The galaxy went silent. Explained that Earth had spent the last 6 months studying the ancient code. Human scientists had broken down its structure. They had understood its principles, and they had discovered something remarkable. The code contained knowledge that predated current galactic civilization by millions of cycles. It contained the secrets of an intelligence that had understood the universe in ways that no living species currently did. Inside that code were propulsion systems that could move ships faster than anything the Council possessed. Medical technologies that could extend and cure diseases that had been incurable for thousands of years. Energy sources that could power entire star systems without any kind of environmental damage. Mathematical principles that could revolutionize everything the Council understood about physics and reality itself. And Earth was offering to share all of it. The Council representatives did not know how to respond. Silence filled the chamber like a physical thing. The delegate tried to speak, but no words came. It was the elder who finally moved, the ancient being that had watched civilizations rise and fall for 50,000 years, the creature that had been present at the founding of the Council itself. It stood slowly and walked toward. When the elder reached him, it did something that shocked every delegate in the chamber. It bowed, not the bow of a defeated enemy, not the bow of subservience, but the bow of one equal recognizing another equal, the bow of respect between ancient powers. The elder spoke in its voice like wind through empty ruins. You are offering us the knowledge of the ancient intelligence. You are offering us tools that could give us power beyond what we currently possess. Why would you do this? Smiled with genuine kindness. He explained that humans were not what the Council thought they were. Humans were not conquerors by nature. Humans were explorers and builders and dreamers. Humans had come to the galaxy hopping to find a place to belong. They had wanted to be part of something larger than themselves. Daniel Mitchell had believed that the galaxy could be better than its history suggested. Daniel Mitchell had believed that different species could work together toward a common goal. Daniel Mitchell had died believing that peace was possible. The ancient code had been activated in defense, but it did not have to define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. Humanity could choose a different path. Humanity could choose to be partners instead of rulers, teachers instead of conquerors. This is what Ambassador Mitchell would have wanted, said. Not victory through destruction, but peace through cooperation. The Council members looked at each other. They could refuse the offer. They could try to take the knowledge by force. They had the numbers. They had the resources. They could probably defeat humanity if they combined all their military might. But they did not. Over the following months, the galaxy underwent transformation. Human researchers worked alongside alien scientists. They sat in laboratories and shared discoveries. They debated theories and challenged assumptions. They worked toward understanding the universe together instead of competing for dominance. Human engineers helped redesign galactic infrastructure. They showed alien builders how to construct stations that could withstand disasters. They taught alien engineers techniques for efficiency and safety that had taken humans centuries to develop. Human philosophers debated with the Council about the nature of power and responsibility. They taught the oldest civilizations in the galaxy lessons about compassion and restraint. They showed that strength was not measured in weapons, but in the ability to choose mercy when revenge was possible. Ships carrying human aid went to worlds damaged by the war. Food, medicine, shelter, construction materials, all sent freely to species that had been trying to destroy humanity months before. The galaxy was shocked by this. No species had ever done this before. No species had ever forgiven that quickly. No species had ever chosen compassion over justice. But humans had learned something during the war that the galaxy had forgotten. Revenge did not heal wounds. Revenge created new wounds that went deeper. Mercy was not weakness. Mercy was the strongest choice that any species could make. Trade routes opened that had been closed for generations. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years began to work together. Humans acted as bridges between conflicts. Humans became teachers of peace. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy with these changes. Some alien species resented humanity's sudden prominence. Some viewed human success with envy or anger. Some continued to argue that humans were fundamentally dangerous and should be watched carefully. And some humans felt that their sacrifice had not been properly honored. They believed that the galaxy should be punished for what it had done to Earth. They believed that humanity should rule now that they had the power. They believed that mercy was wasted on creatures that had committed genocide. These humans were right in their own way. Their anger was justified. Their desire for justice was valid, but they were also wise enough to listen when Green explained why mercy was necessary. The galaxy had fallen into darkness, said. It had forgotten how to work together. It had forgotten how to trust. The ancient code had shown them the darkness. Now humans had a chance to show them the light. The final scene showed Ambassador Green seated in the council chamber. He sat not at the edge where Daniel Mitchell had stood. He did not sit at the center where he had negotiated the treaty. He sat among the other representatives, equal but not superior, powerful but not dominating. Around him, the galaxy continued its work. Scientific breakthroughs came almost daily. Ships moved between star systems carrying goods and ideas and knowledge. Conflicts that had lasted for thousands of years were being resolved. Old wounds were beginning to heal. The ancient code remained dormant in Earth's core. Humanity kept its promise. The code was never activated again. It stood as a reminder that power's true measure was not in its use, but in the wisdom of knowing when not to use it. Earth had initiated total erasure protocol and survived. But more importantly, humanity had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. Humans had shown that redemption through compassion was stronger than any weapon ever created. They had shown that a species that could hold ultimate power and choose restraint was the most powerful force in the universe. Daniel Mitchell had died believing in a dream. That dream had seemed impossible. The galaxy had seemed too large and too old and too cruel for human kindness to matter. But his death had created a path toward something he had never expected. His sacrifice had opened the door for humanity to become something greater than they had imagined. Not greater through dominance, not greater through conquest, but greater through choosing to be better than their circumstances demanded. Greater through choosing compassion when power would have been easier. Greater through choosing hope when despair would have been justified. The galaxy had expected humanity to become monsters. Humanity had chosen to become teachers instead. And somewhere in a place beyond life and death and the reach of any galactic power, Daniel Mitchell's spirit could finally rest. The dream that he had carried to the council chamber had survived his death. It had been carried forward by Green and every human who chose mercy over revenge. It had transformed the galaxy into something better. It had proven that hope was the most powerful force in the universe, that compassion was stronger than weapons, that the future did not have to be written in blood and ash. It could be written in light. And as the galaxy moved forward into this new age, they all learned the lesson that humans had known all along, that the strongest species in the universe was not the one with the biggest weapons or the oldest civilization or the most power. The strongest species was the one that could choose what was right over what was easy, the one that could forgive instead of destroy, the one that could see the potential for good even in creatures that had tried to commit genocide. That species was humanity, and they had just changed the entire galaxy forever.